I was 10 the first time I saw the earth move. Not in a way that makes sense. No earthquake, no storm tearing through the fields. It was more like the ground had a heartbeat. I remember standing barefoot by the old ash tree at the edge of the property, watching the soil shiver in little ripples as if something beneath was stretching awake. I told Dad, but he only squinted down at me, the skin around his eyes cracked from sun and drink, and said, "Boy, if you don't stop telling stories, I'll make sure you can't." So I learned to keep quiet. Learned quick that speaking up only earned a split lip or a welt across the back of my legs. Years passed and the image of that pulsing ground faded, turning into something I told myself was a dream. By the time I was old enough to leave, I didn't look back. I traded fields for concrete and silence for the hum of servers in a basement office, and for a while I thought I'd escaped that place entirely. Until Ruth called. Her voice was thin and brittle, the way wood sounds when it's about to snap. She said Dad wasn't doing well, said he could barely keep upright, and the livestock were going hungry. She didn't ask me to come back, not outright, but her words crawled into my chest and stayed there. I hated him. I hated that farm. But when I pictured him hunched over alone in the cold, something in me cracked. I packed a duffel bag and drove through the night, back to the one place I swore I'd never see again. The farm looked sick when I pulled in. The barns sagged like broken ribs, fields stripped bare and gray, the fences slumped into weeds. And there he was on the porch, smaller than I remembered, a patchwork of wrinkles and hollow cheeks. He looked at me like I was a ghost. "You're late," was all he said. I told myself I'd stay a week, just long enough to patch the roof, mend the fences, and make sure he wasn't about to die in a ditch. But days bled into each other like spilled ink. He wasn't cruel the way he used to be. If anything, he was quiet, almost tender in these strange, jagged ways, muttering instructions as he showed me how to lever a rotten post out of the earth, or chuckling soft when I skinned my knuckles on a rusted hinge. For a moment, I let myself believe maybe age had sanded him down into something human. But then I started noticing things. The goats were disappearing, one every other day. I'd wake to an empty pen and Dad's boots caked in mud, the smell of iron thick in the air. When I asked, he said it was old farm work, and his voice had this quiver to it, like he was hiding a secret behind his teeth. The nightmares came back next, ones I hadn't had since I was a kid. The ground beyond the ash tree, splitting open like a wound, veins glistening under moonlight, twitching like a muscle about to clench, and something wet dragging itself toward me from the dark. One night I woke to the creak of floorboards. His boots thudded down the hall, then faded toward the fields. I slipped from bed and followed, the cold biting through my shirt, my breath smoking in the air. The moon hung low, turning the marsh silver. I saw him out there, a thin silhouette tugging something behind him, a goat, its hooves skittering in the frost. He let it past the tree line down to that hollow where the soil looked darker than it should. I crouched low, my heart grinding against my ribs. The goat bleated once, sharp and desperate, before the sound cut off like a throat closing. Dad just stood there after, head bowed, his arms limp at his sides, like a man at prayer. Then the earth moved, not a ripple this time. It swelled, rising in a slow, shuddering breath, splitting open to show what lay beneath, a slick expanse of flesh and veins, twitching with hunger. It pulsed, and I heard it, a sound like meat tearing, and then something else. A voice, not in words, but in a low, wet hum that curled into my bones. Dad turned toward me. His eyes caught the moonlight, and I swear for a moment they weren't his eyes at all. Too wide, too empty. His mouth opened, and his voice came out ragged, breaking on every syllable. "You shouldn't have come back." The ground yawned wider, a raw, glistening throat, and something inside it shifted, stretching toward me with blind, groping limbs. That's when I ran. And the worst part, I can still hear it, low and patient, beating through the soil whenever I close my eyes. Like it knows I'll come back. Like it knows I belong to it.